All right, continue our conversation with Dr. Brigalia Bam, who's just released her book. It's a biography. It's Democracy More Than Just Elections. That's the title of the book. It was released last night. So as you can imagine, the excitement is still there and will continue as South Africans get that glimpse of this phenomenal woman who led our elections for over 12 years. And of course, the stories that go into it and her bosses, which we spoke about Madiba, the word was supportive. Thabo Mbeki, our former president, the word you used was hands-on. How do you describe our President Jacob Zuma? What was it like working with him?
President Zuma had an amazing history because he was very, very active in 1994. And was one of the persons who had worked extremely hard in the mediation in KwaZulu-Natal. Those were the difficult days. And one of the areas that he was very concerned about was the prevention of any violence during the election and post-election, because he had this history and how hard they've worked. And so he was very helpful in the encouragement of the security and to make sure that we put everything in place as the police go and all that. And that kind of experience of 1984 was very good for us.
Yeah.
Especially that the KwaZulu-Natal has always been an area where you are likely to get some, and it's been surprising that considering all that KwaZulu-Natal had gone through, we were able to sail through with few things here and there, but it was still there.
Yeah. Well, are you happy to be away from things now on the South African political landscape? I mean, and I ask this because so much has changed since those days. You look
indeed.
at the introduction of the EFF, the DA, the ANC, this all now a bubbling pot.
It's changed, and I think that the generation gap and the intergenerational relationships would be much, much harder now, because at that time, you know, we were, and we are still, as the Electoral Commission, reporting to Parliament. And so the people in Parliament were really our bosses. And I think to myself, oh, the generation gap would have been a crisis for me. And it's good to see the good also, the maturity that is happening.
Yeah.
And the way the parties are also beginning to handle their competition differently. And I think the enthusiasm of the people, very vocal. And of course, I think that it's a bit different now because the voters who were really just in the mood of celebrating are a little more critical. They are beginning to question things much more than they did before. And I would imagine my colleagues are going to have more of the court cases. So things have changed for the good.
For the good.
Yes. So
democracy at play.
Democracy at play. Indeed. And we are growing with all the, you know, 21 years old is always a period, even for a person growing, that you go through that kind of transition of adulthood. And I think we are now as a nation slowly getting over being teenagers and excited about life to be on our own with maturity.
Yeah,
that's what our democracy is.
The one question I have to ask you before I let you go, did you have to leave a lot out of the book? Were there things you just couldn't talk about? Things that, almost like a medical doctor, it's information for you and no one else?
Not too much, really. I wish I would have time to talk about more of our staff debates, but there's no time on things like that. When you get a call at 5 o'clock on the election day, you are alert, and they said, Chair, we can't get the keys. The person who has the keys to the classrooms cannot be found anywhere. And there's not much you can do, but you're in Pretoria, also awake.
Yeah.
But then those are the things sometimes you have to think about, But you can't get all those details of the little crises in operation that are very important.
Amazing. Yes. Can't wait to read it. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us here on Morning Live.
Thank you. Good to be here again, Morning Live.
It is good to have you back.
You gave me so much publicity during those years. Thank you for that.
And always a pleasure to have you here in studio. Dr. Brigalia Bam, her book is out. It's in bookstores around the country now. Democracy More Than Just Elections. I think this is a must read for all South Africans. It really is. Let's take a break. We'll see you after this.